Hey everybody, Troy Simpson here, Honey Hill Farm. Out here in the garage again today, working on some frames, getting my nukes, my swarm boxes ready. I've got the top, I went around the top and put some caulking to seal up that top because it seems like that's where a lot of water gets in. So I sealed up the top with paintable caulk, and then I put the paint, once it skimmed over, I put the paint over top of my caulk. So I think the tops will be sealed good. I think I've got them sealed up good enough they'll hold up all right. I'm gonna try to put a frame of foundation, wax foundation, a frame of old drawn comb, which this is definitely old and drawn, and probably a couple starter strips in there to make sure they have plenty of room. I got 11 of them made. I went ahead, I finally figured out on my vents what to do about the vents. I ain't sure if this is a good idea or not, but I feel like they need to be vented. But I used some black tar paper and caulked it, and it's got 3 holes drilled in there with screen, so I can kind of close the there they are. I can kind of close the vents off a little bit, or keep some light from getting in there. So that's what I've come with on my vents for them. But I've got these pretty much ready to go. I gotta get these frames ready and get the frames in there, and I should be good to set these outside, which will get them out of the way. Still got a little bit more wafer board, my tar paper scraps over there. I've got 11, Dad's got 5, so it's 16. So hopefully out of that little pile I can get 4 more. I'd like to have 20. My wife got the, quote, snow shovel out. She didn't know what that was for real, but I'm sure a lot of you do. But it worked pretty good for a snow shovel, I guess, too, because she got snow cleaned off the sidewalk, so I'm not going to complain. But she said, yeah, she'd never seen a snow shovel like that. I thought it was cute. I got my working on these old frames, got these frames over here. I try to talk a little bit about what's causing my bees to die. People, the most common question I get right now, and that I see and that I hear, that people ask me, is that, why have my bees died? They were doing so good. I thought I was fine, and now they're dead. What happened? So that's what I want to talk a little bit about today. Today is February 18th here in Kentucky, north central Kentucky. We've got another probably 2 or 3 inches of snow on top of the 2 or 3 inches we already had. The roads was pretty slick this morning. Took the wife to work, and they're about 50-50. It was fairly slick, so it's pretty cold here. Hopefully this weather is going to break soon. I think next week's supposed to get up to 55, so looking forward to that. But I know what happens. You get caught with your pants down sometime, and if you don't do this stuff when it's cold like this, when it does warm up, then you're behind the 8 ball and you don't have the stuff done you need to do. It changes quick, they say, in Kentucky, and probably a lot of other places. If you don't like the weather here, just wait a day or two and it'll change. And that's about the truth of it. We get a little bit of everything. But it's cold today outside. Got a little bit before I have to go pick her back up. So out here in the garage working. Got my swarm traps pretty much ready to go. I'm gonna get these frames put in them, and I think I'm just gonna screw the covers down. I just got a flat piece of wood for a cover. I get that done, I go ahead and set them outside, get the frames in them, and then all I have to do is take them out and hang them. I'm gonna number them all, put numbers on them, and then keep records of what number swarm trap is in what location. I've got probably 10 places to put traps up, and I'd like to have 20 of them, so be 2 per spot, and we'll see how it goes. I hope it goes good. I'm looking forward to trying it out. I'm excited about trying it. But today I'm in here putting these foundation in these frames and wanted to talk a little bit. Everything I keep hearing and seeing is about why did my bees die. I've got several people. I feel bad actually because I've got several people that I helped get started, and it's always the same story. And people get so, I know a lot of people that watch these videos get so disappointed, and we're so excited about their hives, and we're doing good in the spring and summer and even into fall, and think everything's going fine. A lot of times, even in your second year, your first year might not have been too bad, and your second year, they'll die. And it's very frustrating, and it's always, I get a lot of calls, I don't know what happened, I thought I did everything right. I guess I'm not a very good beekeeper, because my hives have all died. So it's a common story. This will be my 22nd year of beekeeping. So I'm not a scientist. I know what I've experienced the last 21 years, and I know what I've read and heard and been educated by people smarter than me. But this is my opinion. It's what I think it is from my experience, and I'm not a scientist. I don't know. We found out a lot of stuff and repeat a lot of stuff that we've heard, but we can't do all the experiments ourselves and experience everything for ourselves. We have to listen to what's told to us by people smarter than us and decipher it. But from everything that I've gathered over the years, I'm going to do my best at telling you why I think that the hives are dead. And the biggest reason I think we lose hives this time of year, we lose them for two reasons. A lot of times hives will just starve to death. If we don't feed them, I know I've talked about it before if you've been listening to this series. Since I've got back into beekeeping, getting back into it this year, when I was doing it before, we fed bees, but not like people do now. People really feed the heck out of them, and I guess that's a good thing. And people say it can't hurt, and that's true to an extent. You can feed them too much and get them all, everything filled up with sugar water, and the queen doesn't have her own delay, so you can feed them too much. But a lot of times, if we don't feed them, they'll starve. This is the time of year that they're going to starve to death, right before they get ready to break out. And they're getting ready to break out here. I don't know how it is in your area, but in Kentucky, when this weather breaks, hopefully the maples will be starting to put out some pollen, and when they start getting that pollen in, they really build up quick. It takes a while to get used to how fast the bees build up and do everything. A lot of times we think, well, it's snowy and cold and wet and can't be much going on in the hive, but there is. So we got to make sure that we do feed, have emergency stores. Hopefully the ideal spot to be in is to have enough stores. You got to get used to hefting your hives. Hefting, just lifting up on the back of them and making sure there's plenty of weight. If there's plenty of weight in that hive, they don't require any feed. They're good. But you got to get used to hefting them. I have had bees starve to death. You keep bees for very long, you're going to have some hives that starve to death. But it's best not to get caught off guard. It's easy your first couple, 2 or 3 years of keeping bees, you check them twice as often as you should. But after a few years, you don't check them near as often as you should. So always keep a check on them and make sure they got plenty of stores in there. If they don't, as far as I'm concerned, the best way to feed them is sugar candy. Emergency method would be put just straight sugar on top of the hive, on top of the top bars of the frames. Some people put it on the inner cover, but get some kind of feed in there so that your bees don't starve to death. The main reason that hives will die this time of year, as far as I'm concerned, is a mite problem that you didn't know about. I think new beekeepers don't realize, sometimes older beekeepers don't realize how big of a problem these mites cause our bees. I'm a perfect example of it. If you ever wondered, and there's treatment-free beekeepers, and I'm all for that, and I wanted to do that. I was right there with them. And I've heard a lot of other beekeepers were the same way. But I had no intention of treating. If you ever thought to yourself and said, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get 50 hives, and I'm not going to treat them. And whichever ones survive, I'm going to raise queens and build back up from my survivors from that 50. If you ever thought you wanted to do that experiment, you don't have to do it, because I've already done it. I had 50 hives. I got tired of buying packages. I had a big pile of packages empty packages up in the barn. I was replacing dead packages with new packages, and then they would die. But my 50 hives have turned to, I think I've got one left. I thought I had two. I'm pretty sure that's down to one, and I'm not sure that it's gonna make it. I'm not convinced of the strength of it, but it's been so cold and I can't get out there to it. So these mites have to be handled one way or another. Now you can be treatment free and use brood breaks and screen bottom boards and genetics, mite resistant bee. You can use a lot of other things to treat them, but my whole philosophy is changed from what it used to be, and you have to do something to take care of these mites, take care of those mite problems. They bring viruses in the hive. I think there's a lot of things that we don't understand. You hear a lot of beekeepers talking a lot of stuff, and I don't think we come close to understanding the bad things that mites bring to a beehive. But you got to know, you got to check them. You got to have a reliable way to check and see how many mites that a hive has. You got to have a reliable test that you can check that. And then if you've got mites in the hive, you've got to be able to do something to get those mites out. Whether you're treatment free or you treat them, you've got to have a way to get these mites to deal with them and to realize that you have a problem. When I had hives before, my philosophy was I just wasn't going to worry about it. I would either have bees if they made it, or I wouldn't have bees if they didn't make it. And maybe that comes from 20 years of beekeeping. But the way I feel now, you just can't handle it that way. That's not the way to handle it. Obviously, I don't have any bees left. So you got to handle these mites. You got to know how many you got, and you got to do something about it to get rid of them or to take care of them. Healthy hives can do a whole lot. It's weird. It's not like any other type of farming. It's hard to see. Your mites. New people. People has been doing it a while. Your bees seem like they're doing good in the fall. I've done everything I need to do. Got a good heavy hive. Everything should be good. And then bang, all your bees are dead. It's something that it's hard on new people. You get used to it, I guess, as an older beekeeper. But it's very frustrating. I think a lot of people get out of the hobby because they get so frustrated that I don't know what I'm doing enough to be able to keep my bees alive, and I don't want to keep them if I'm just going to kill them every year. But I think the secret, a lot of the problem is to treat for these mites, to use some of the soft treatments that they've got out now. Again, when I was doing it before, we had check mite and what was the other one? Apistan, I think was what it was. And it hurt the queens. The queens mess with your queens. It was way too hard. The bees developed a resistance to it. It just didn't work. I did treat to a certain extent, and it would knock down the mites, but it wasn't a sustainable approach to being able to take care of it. So we got to take care of the mite issue one way or another if we're going to keep bees. The other thing that this is a time when they was talking about CCD and, what's killing the hives. And bees account for 1/3 of our food, and we got to do something to keep the bees. I know a lot of people got into beekeeping because of that, and maybe for that, and probably still do, just to be able to help the bees sustain the bee population that we have. But as far as I'm concerned, the problem, and it may not be as prevalent now, but I know when I was keeping bees before, I think a lot of the problem was GMO corn. Bees don't get a lot from corn, but they do get pollen. They do bring that pollen in. And that GMO corn has got insecticide already in it. And when they bring that pollen back to the hive for later, I think it has an effect. I feel like that's a cause of a lot of our colony collapses and things was the GMO corn. I just a personal, again, I'm not a scientist. I don't have data to back it up. I just feel like that's one of the things that badly affects the bees, causes problems for the bees, is the supposed progress of making seeds. It's already got insecticide, a way to kill bad bugs and stuff on our plants. It also kills good bugs. Maybe not immediately, but eventually when they put that stuff in the hive and then use it later, I think it had an effect. Maybe still does, maybe not. Like I said, I've been out of it for a little bit, so hopefully they're not using it like they were. I hope not, but it's hard to get away when you keep bees out in the country. You can't get away from corn and soybeans. I mean, I talked to our state apiarist the other day, and she said, ask her about keeping, how many hives you can have to a yard. She said the main thing is that, not have them in the city and to have them in the country, but not around beans, soybeans, and corn. I'm like, well, that's where I'm at. That's almost impossible. There's soybeans and corn everywhere. So hopefully that GMO issue has been taken care of. And won't be such a problem. Other than that, I think nutrition means a lot. I'm going to pay a lot more attention to the nutrition and to feeding bees. I think they're probably fed too much now. I think from what I've been, trying to get back into it and seeing and hearing, there's a lot of people feeding too much maybe, but I definitely think I didn't feed enough. So I'm going to take a lesson from some of the people that's feeding more often and try to do a better job at nutrition and making sure the bees have what they need. It makes sense when you think about it. If it rains for a week and the bee can't get out of the hive, it's kind of hard to bring in stuff, and they've got to use up their stores to have something to eat during that rain or that time that they can't get out, or cold, or whatever time of year it is. So when we provide pollen patties and sugar water, ways to feed the bees, that gives them something to hold them over until they can get back out and get nectar. And especially this time of the year when they're using up those stores more than we realize. We don't realize, it took me a long time to figure out that the bees were building up at a rate and a time a lot faster than I thought they would. So as a new beekeeper, you need to realize, maybe this is your second year, bees are starting to build up now. She's already laying brood. They are stronger. If they're still going, they're stronger than you think. And it's a shame to have a good strong hive out there to just starve to death because they run out of food. So don't be lax like I was, and get out there and check them, make sure they're good and heavy, make sure they're okay. So what's the answer? What do we do about it? What do we do about, if we've got our hives and our hives have died? I know when I first started, I had a big question. Well, did these die from disease or a problem that I need to not use my frames and boxes again, or can I still use them? I had a lot of questions. I think for the most part we can still use that equipment, can still be used, but it's not a lost cause. We can still use that, whatever stores they've got. I know I've got, like I say, at least one dead hive out there now that's heavy with honey. Got a lot of honey in it. I plan to collect that honey and bring it back here. My first option is to use it for my bees and whatever I can catch in these swarm traps. I'm going to use those honey frames to go right in there to speed things up, to get my new bees built up. But yeah, those boxes, unless it was something else that caused it, and I guess it could have been foul brood, or if it was foul brood, you certainly don't want to use it again. But if you know it wasn't foul brood, I don't know of any reason why you couldn't use those frames again and start to help you build back up. But I think it's important not to get frustrated and to stay with it, because you'll get it figured out. Like I say, the soft treatments that they have now, and I know everybody doesn't feel this way, but I'm going to treat, and I'm going to treat more than once. There's always a question, well, how much do I treat? I think from what I've been looking at and hearing and seeing and getting back into this, the treatments are soft enough now. You wouldn't want to, if you still using Checkmate or the Apistan that we used to have, I wouldn't want to keep using that stuff over and over. Definitely don't want to use anything when you got honey on the hive. But I plan on treating as required. I'm going to keep, what I'm changing and doing different is I'm going to keep a lot closer eye on the mites. I think I know a lot better now how bad they are. Yeah, keep a lot closer eye on how many's in there, and I'm going to treat as required. But I also know too, and one thing I think I didn't realize from before is that, even if you've got a hive or even a yard that you've raised to be treatment free, if you've got other hives in the area that's just covered up in mites, it's going to be hard for them. They might survive if they was on an island and there was no other bees around. They might be just fine and be able to handle a mite problem, and your maintenance practices would work. But unless everybody's doing it and nobody has mites, you need to keep a lot closer check, or I need to keep a lot closer check and plan to, of how many mites I have in those hives. But I plan on treating. The hive I've got left, I'm gonna wait till it warms up, and I'll go ahead and check them, and probably that decision will be made then. But I don't plan to treat it right now, unless it's just covered up and I have to. Hopefully it'll be fine until after the honey flow. But after the honey flow, after I collect the honey, I'll collect the honey in July. After I get that honey off that hive, and hopefully maybe I'll have some other hives that make some honey. We'll see. But after we collect the honey, get the honey in, then I'm going to go ahead and treat. And I'm leaning toward either Apivar or oxalic acid. Again, you hear different beekeepers say there, I would never use oxalic acid, and it sets back the queen. I believe that, and I've heard that, but I've also heard that the queen comes back after that treatment and has a better pattern than she had before. So I don't know. I might try. I don't know. We'll see how it goes and how many mites they have when I go to check them. But I'm gonna try some stuff. But that's kind of what I'm leaning on right now, or leaning toward, is the oxalic acid and the Apivar. Oh, I'm sorry, formic acid. I'm telling you the wrong thing. Formic acid in the summertime after the honey is off. I think they said the formic acid and the hop guard you can use with the honey on. But I'm gonna wait till the honey's off, use formic acid or Apivar, and in the wintertime, when there's no brood, I use the oxalic acid, and I'll probably treat 2 or 3 times with that, because there's no evidence that it hurts the bees at all or sets them back, and it kills the mites. So that's my plan, and I'm sticking to it. Again, in beekeeping, you've got to have a plan, but you've also got to be flexible enough and open-minded enough to change it as required, because you have to, it's just like these boxes. You got to, have your boxes ready and to go with your plan, what you want to do, how many hives you want to have, but you've also got to change on the fly. And one of the scary things about making these videos is that you're going to say something, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that, and then come around to that time and you do something completely different. And that's just beekeeping. So, and I've already heard it too. I've been watching videos just like y'all do, and I've seen people say one thing and do something else. So it's flexible. It changes all the time. There's a lot of variables in beekeeping, and you have to be able to change and go with it. You got to know what you know, but not be so set in your ways that you don't listen. My dad's a pretty smart man. He says, take advice. Always listen to advice. If it's a 5-year-old giving you advice, listen to it, pray about it, think about it, and either use it or try it or adapt it or don't, but always listen. And too often we don't listen to advice. We don't listen to what other people are doing. We think we got it all figured out, and we fall on our face. So always listen to other people's advice. It's your choice whether or not you want to take their advice and use it and try what they've told you or not. But at least think about it and pray about it, and make it a good decision on it, no matter who give it to you. So the things I'm changing for this year, the things I'm after in my 22nd year of beekeeping, the things I'm doing different this year is going to be to watch for the mites, do good mite counts, treat for the mites if I need to, and treat and make sure I've got them all knocked out. I'm going to keep a lot better records. I kept really good records before, but not good enough. One thing I wish right now is I could find the records that I had. I had records on individual hives and how they did. I got away from keeping. I used to have a book, and I would have tabs in the book with the hive numbers on the tabs, and I could go to hive number 7 on that tab and see, on April 1st or March 15th I rotated, and April 1st I split and made 2 newts, and April 15th I took off the top box for another split, and I would have, this hive cost me, I had to spend this much on foundation or this much on whatever for that hive. So I had an expense column in my book, and I also had an income column. So however much, I might have spent $50 on that hive for 1 new boxes or one reason or another, recorded. And then I would also have recorded, well, that hive made 3 supers of honey, and 3 supers is 2.5 gallons of super, so that's 7.5 gallons of honey. So I figured out how much that honey was worth, so I spent $50 and made whatever. I had all them records, I had it all written down, and I don't know what happened to it. I would give anything to have those again. And I want to do that again, but I also want to do a better job. We get lax in it. I got away from it there in the last few years and started writing I always had to remember what I did to the hives when I got back to the house. I keep it in a notebook, and I've done a little bit of everything. But you had to remember when you got back to the house, what you did to each hive. Or keep notes on that hive while you were out there, and then transcribe them into the big book when you got home. So I got away from it there at the end and started keeping notes on my hive outer covers on top of the hive. Then that way when I looked in the hive, I didn't have to wonder or guess. Well, I replaced the queen on April 15th. I didn't have to wonder what was in my book. I knew because it was right there on the top of the hive. And by the time you got all the way down that top cover, the first notes, may have been from last year, had already faded out, and you could start all over and start working your way back down again. And it worked great for looking in the hive when you were out there at the hive, but it's terrible as far as having records to look back on. You can see trends. You keep good enough notes, you can see trends on what you've done that worked, and hives that made honey, and hives that didn't, and hives that were perennial baby hives that you spent all your time babying. All those trends are lost if you do it on the hive cover. A lot of benefits to doing it that way, but a lot of bad things too. So that's another thing I want to do, is keep a lot better notes, a lot better record keeping than I had before. A lot better these mite counts. I'm going to keep the mite counts, what I treated with, how much treatment, when I treated, if it done the job or not, what it brought it down to. All those are invaluable. And they're invaluable too if we're willing to share them for other beekeepers. We can, if we all had good notes and could all share, I think we could learn things from each other. A lot too. It would be neat to look at somebody else's notes and see things they did. Again, it would be, you look at it and say, yep, I don't think I want to do that. Or you look at it and say, that's a pretty good idea. I never thought about it. Think I might try it. So a lot of those things, you'll find a lot of stuff that you don't want to use, but a lot of things can benefit you too. Another thing I'm going to do different on the hives this time is to have a clear vision for each hive. If a hive is supposed to be a production hive to make honey, then that's what it's going to be for. What you do for a hive in the summertime, building it up, what I do for these hives, these swarms that I catch for this summer, will determine if that hive makes honey for next summer or not. The last time, before when I was keeping bees, I would have good strong hives, and either I had all these ideas about I'm going to make queens, and I'm going to take some brood for this, and I'm going to make some newts, and I'm going to do some splits, and I'm going to just all this stuff. And what ends up happening is you ended up making it to where that hive is not able to make a honey crop for the next year. It might live, you might not kill the hive, but I think one of the things I want to do is have a clear, this is going to be a production hive. This is my plan to build this hive up. This is how I'm going to overwinter it, whether it be in a double deep or a single deep. And have a clear plan, and then stick with that plan, and not be, you take for granted when you start out beekeeping, you're excited about it, and you're in your hives way too much, and you end up setting them back, and I think that's probably a needed thing, because you need to find out what the queen looks like, what brood looks like, pollen looks like. You need to be in there a lot, but it sets the hives back. But as you get a little further along, you take for granted what you have. You have a good strong hive that you're able to make a honey crop. I need to look at that hive as a production hive for next year and not do anything that's going to mess it up. You can do a lot of stuff, and you'll, I've heard beekeepers all the year, well, I got 3 hives and I'm going to raise queens, sell nukes, and have a big old honey crop. And you can't do all those things. Pollen, another thing I did is pollen. I've got a pollen trap over there, and trap pollen, anything that you do takes away from that hive. If you can do, you want to, trap pollen, then trap pollen. But don't expect that to be your best hive if you're going to take their pollen away from them. And yeah, you can do it every other day. There's things you can do, and maybe that might work all right, but maybe it might be a dearth that year or just not a good year, and maybe it won't. So have a plan for your hives, and it's going to be a production hive, or I'm going to raise bees off these, or I'm going to raise queens, or this yard I'm going to raise honey off of for production hives. And these hives, have a plan for each hive and how you want to handle it. Don't try to do everything with every hive. And definitely if you got 3 hives, it's going to be, I ain't going to say it can't be done, but I've seen very few people that's raised queens, sold nukes, and made honey off of 3 hives. It's very, it just does not enough hives, not enough resources to be able to do all that with. But it's cool to try. It's fun. Maybe you just want to have some fun and try it and see how it works. From my experience, I've done all that stuff. I've been there and done that, and I will not be doing that again. I will have a clear plan of how I want to keep it. Getting this, I think this is the last old frame. I got all these old frames. I still got some out in the truck. But you can, the wire in here needs to be tight enough you can play a tune on it. So that's some good. The right tension on that wire is good and tight. This foundation almost seems to be a little big, or maybe my frames are just small. Maybe it's, I don't know. And some of this foundation is, I'm having to trim down to get in here, which it's no big deal, but it's just, I've never had to do that before. A little bit different. I'm trying to think of what else I'm going to try to do different this year. I know I'm going to catch a swarm, but I've never done that. I'm going to treat often if I have to. I've never done that. I'm going to have a plan for each hive, what it's going to be, production, queen raising. I'm going to do a better job at that, do a better job at record keeping, keep good records. I have done that, but I want to do it better. And it's easy to say all this stuff and then not follow through with it. But I'm trying to think of what else that I want to do different. I think we can always do a better job at keeping our yards cut better and keeping the grass cut and set up the hives better, get them up off the ground. Put some mulch or put something down where we don't have to trim around them so much. It's all easier said than done. It's easy to sit here and say, yep, I'm going to keep that grass mowed, and then you got to put a bee suit on when it's 98 degrees outside and go out there and mow your yard to get the grass out from around your house. And it's a whole lot easier to set in air conditioning. But yeah, I want to check. Another thing is I didn't check. The last time I didn't check my hives enough. Checked them a whole lot in the spring up to honey flow. Get that honey off there. Come in and extract the honey. Get that honey extracted, start selling honey, and your mind turns from bees to selling your honey crop. Getting it bottled, getting it labeled, selling your honey crop, and turns away from the bees kind of go by themselves. I want to do a better job at checking. I'm going to try to check. I think, to me, what I know now, a week is too often. To check your bees every week is too often. About every 2 weeks is about right. And I did not do a good job last time of checking the bees every 2 weeks after we extracted the honey. So I'm going to check the bees better. After even when it's hot, try to get out there and check them. I have done it. I've always wanted to do the summer splits. And I have, to a certain extent. I got in a hive one time. Anytime I've ever seen a frame of brood that went corner to corner, I went one time in July and was checking hives. I remember I said, man, this frame has got brood in spades. I mean, it just had all kind of brood. I couldn't believe they had that much brood in there in July. In Kentucky and where I'm at, we have a dearth in July. It's completely, there is no, you got to be careful about robbing. It's hard to open hives without bees starting to rob. But this hive had brood corner to corner in this hive. And I thought, well, I think I may have thought about making a split off of it, and maybe it was too hot, and I was like, no, I ain't doing this. But that hive swarmed in the summer. But it taught me a lesson that every time I've ever seen a frame have brood from corner to corner, it wasn't the oval shape that it normally is. It went all the way out to the corners of the frame. Every time I've ever seen that, no matter what time of year it was, that hive swarmed. And that hive swarmed in July, and I couldn't believe it. But that would have been a split that I could have made. And I'm going to do a better job at checking them and doing those splits in the summer. I've been seeing a lot of stuff about overwintering nukes. I'm definitely going to overwinter nukes. That's another thing I'm going to do. And I'm going to look at maybe overwintering some single deeps. I always overwinter in double deeps. I like having a lot of bees in the spring. But may look into maybe going a little more toward single deeps. So that's something I want to look into. But definitely overwintering. I've got a bunch of nukes boxes now. Definitely want to overwinter some nukes. You'd be so much, the nukes, just having a nuke in the springtime, not even thinking about overwintering it, puts you so far ahead. They're unbelievable how much they build up from a nuke. You're really ahead when you use nukes, even in the summertime. But if you had nukes that were overwintered, that would be even better. And before, when I was keeping bees, everybody always said, well, you can't overwinter nukes. But people do it all the time. So that's on the list to do this year, and to do different is to overwinter those nukes. I got the cover set up where I can put them right up next to each other. I've heard a lot of people say that it's good to have them tight, keeps the wind off of them. They do get some heat that transfers between boxes. So I'll try that. I know a lot of people stack them up and I'll have, second and third stories on their nuke boxes. I don't know if I'll do that or not. I haven't got any equipment for that yet. But I definitely want to try overwintering nukes. To have your colonies that you have in the springtime, and plus have some nuke boxes sitting there that you could take brood out of, or a queen if you needed it, or to have that immediately in the spring coming out of winter would be invaluable. So that's definitely want to try to do that. All right, I think that's about all I got for this one. Don't get discouraged. I know, like I say, a lot of new beekeepers are watching YouTube videos and everything that they can watch. If this is your first year, it's very exciting. The bees will do great the first year. It seems like they always do really good. Check for mites. Get involved with a local beekeeper. Find a mentor. Join a beekeeping club. Find some other people that can help you check for mites and make sure that you don't have any or don't have an unacceptable level. If you do, find out what to treat them with and get them treated. And hopefully you won't have the discouragement a lot of beekeepers get with losing their hives in the first or second year. If you are one of those beekeepers that's discouraged and thinking, what can I do? Why did my bees die? What can I do to prevent this? Where do I go from here? Don't be discouraged. You are not the only one, I promise you. There is a bunch just like you. Even older beekeepers, people that's been doing it a while, same thing. You're going to lose bees. And one of the things, keeping bees, no matter if you got one or if it or 100 or if it's your first year or 22nd year, you're going to lose bees. That's part of it. I used to think, man, these hives, you can split them. So you can turn two into, my goal was to turn 2 into 4 and 4 into 8 and 8 into 16 and 16 into 32. And I can't add well enough to go any farther than that, but you're going to lose bees. You've got to be able to not turn 1 into 2, but turn 1 into 4. You've got to know how to split. You're going to have to be able to split your hives and turn 1 beehive into 4 beehives. Not every beehive is going to do that. You won't be able to, but some that you do, you need to learn how to do that. And again, you need a mentor, beekeeping club. You need to have somebody that can help you with that. You can read all the books you want, watch all the videos you want. You got to learn some of the stuff hands-on. You just got to know how to do it, know how amazing the bees are and how fast they build up and how good they are at doing what they do. And you also got to know what's going to cause them to fail, because there's no sign of it. Like I say, the bees that are booming in the fall will be the ones that crash in the early spring, this time of year right now. So don't get discouraged. Don't try it again. Do some of the stuff that I've been telling you and that you've been seeing on other videos. Don't be discouraged. It happens to everybody. You're not the only one. You're not a bad beekeeper. Don't be discouraged. I hope you like the video. If you do, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. This is a year-long series, Life in a Year of a Beekeeper. So hit the subscribe button and the notifications, and you'll get the videos of the whole year long. Hopefully it'll help you. It's not the same as having a mentor for sure, but hopefully it'll help you a little bit and lead you in the right direction and make you think of a few things that maybe you hadn't thought of yet. So I hope it helps, and I'll see you on the next one.